What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tech Spark with Meanwell. My name's Eric, and I'm joined by our PM Kai, who runs our Power Solutions team over in KC. Kai, could you give us a sneak peek on what you guys are currently cooking up over at Power Solutions?
All right, thank you, Eric. Glad to be here today. Today we're here to unveil two new products that Meanwhile Power Solutions has been working on. As you guys may know, Meanwhile Power Solutions, we're a subsidiary of Meanwhile that handles the power solutions kind of business. But we are also doing some of the, standard off the shelf we're planning to do that is kind of like, working alongside Meanwhile standard products that offers customer a more comprehensive experience when they're integrating the systems. Right now, we are planning to launch two new products later this year. One of them is called the ACP series, specifically dedicated for access control power. And then a second product is the DBAT, that we call them DBAT. It's a DIN rail / wall mount battery pack, industrial grade battery pack. Yeah, so those are some of the products that we're excited about unveiling and then launching very soon.
Very exciting. Could you, just to focus on access control, could you tell us a little bit about that market?
Yeah. So I think first, we want to talk about what's access control system, right? And access control, it's not something that we really, study or work with every day, but it is actually in our daily lives, whether it's your office building, your, school, your government building, whatever building, there is some kind of access control system in place, and it's just a scale that differs for the different number of doors, different size facility. And access control, obviously it's to help control the access, to restrict people, property, and, to protect these people, property, and information. And in today's world where, technology is rapidly advancing and, the data centers popping out and all that, it's ever more important to have these strict and reliable power systems to be powering the access control systems.
Right. And thanks for walking us through what the market looks like. Now, could you walk us through what the access control system looks like in itself?
Yeah. So what I have here is a system level connection diagram for a very generic access control system. And of course, at the heart of this is a access controller that will tell the different parts of the system whether to let the guest in or let the visitor in or not, based on the input from like a sensor such as card reader or facial recognition sensor and things like that. So a sensor input will tell the access controller the credentials will be given. And then there is usually a management software as well that will enable and the configuration and the remote access, remote control and all that. And of course, the access controller, once it gets the okay to go, it will tell the access control power panel to flip the switch for that specific door, right? And the doors then themselves are very important of obviously the locks and the doors. And there are different types of locks that I can talk to you later about. And of course, as in some system installations, there are typically required a manual override for during emergencies or disastrous situations where, if the access control system fails or if there's a fire emergency, for example, then you need a manual override to be able to forcefully open the doors and things like that. Because some of the door type locks are, locked, permanently locked, even when there's no power or things like that. So yeah, I think this is just a gist of how access control systems works and then the different component that goes inside of such system.
That's quite a list of design considerations to unpack. Could you explain how access control panels are built, even specifically how they're powered?
Yeah. And I think to answer that question, right, we want to talk about why are we talking about the access control power panel specifically? Because of the different security measures, the different level of integrations mentioned in the previous slide, we can see that a control power system requires many different components to make it work. Specifically, I think in addition to just the power supply and then the power distribution portion, there's also the backup portion that is very important in this kind of systems, where if you lose AC power, you cannot just lock people in or out, right? So you still need to make sure the system still works, or be able to send out a alarm signal so that people can know what's going on. So typically inside of the access control power panel, there will usually also be a charger as well, and then the battery, of course, for the backup, and then the UPS, that handles the backup if the AC power is lost. And there will be the individually relay controlled outputs as part of the distribution board. And finally, as part of the distribution board function, usually there should be a communication and connection to the fire alarm panel. They usually call it FACP. And all of this put together inside of the access control power panel is what meanwhile we're doing the ACP product. And all of this, again, just to ensure that it is reliable and up to meets all the code requirements, the product needs to be certified as a whole, the whole panel certified as a whole to the UL 294 safety standard. Yeah.
That's quite a list of components and requirements. Could you show us any specific product lines Power Solutions is currently offering for access control?
Yeah. All right. So here's the unveil. So this is what we call the ACP series, and it is the entire box. So we are building and shipping the entire box, pre-configured before we ship to the customers. And typically, customers that will be purchasing these from us will be the installers or the contractors or the system integrators that are designing these access control systems. So this, again, as mentioned earlier, the ACP is the all-in-one panel that includes power distribution, includes charger, includes UPS, and includes all the communications with external systems like the fire alarm control panel. What's not included when we ship is battery, because based on the different location and installation, the battery size may vary. So we've designed and reserved space and mounting for batteries from 4 amp hours all the way to 12 amp hours. And then users can wire up to 4 batteries if they want in different parallel and series configurations, depending on the voltage of the system. Okay, so I think the brain of this product is actually the control board, the distribution board. And we've designed our distribution board to handle up to 8 different doors or devices for one board. And in each of these panels, we've reserved space to mount 2 of these boards, meaning that each of the panels, each of the ACP panel will be able to provide power for up to 16 different doors and devices. And of course, for larger facilities, the installer can always opt for more panels. There's no conflict or regulations to restrict how many panels you can put in the control room. And I do want to mention that for the distribution board, we actually offer 2 different variants. One is with the ATO ATC fuse, which is the automotive normal fuse, or a class 2 version, NEC class 2 version that is PTC fuse protected. We offer the products in both 12 volt and 24 volt DC variants, depending on the controller system level, voltage level, and the door access level. And then all the alarms and controls are Form C relay, meaning that users have the maximum flexibility to configure whether they want it to be a normal open or normal closed status, as well as the monitoring signals, how they want to trigger their system as well. So Form C is a little more costly, but we did implement that just to offer that flexibility and option for the customer.
Very cool. I'm glad you guys are working through all these intricacies with strong diligence. And just wondering, thanks for walking us through the ACP series. Those ATO, ATC fuses and the PTC outputs really stand out to me. Could you walk us through the importance of having these within the access control panel?
Yeah, and I mean, these fuses, of course, we have a system level fuse that protects the entire system, over the input power, right? But these fuses are specifically for the individual outputs, the individual doors or devices that you're powering with the access control power panel. And we offer two different variants for the users to select based on their preference. And of course, there are some trade-offs between the two. So with the ATO fuse, ATC fuse, it does not meet the class 2 compliance, unfortunately. But for the PTC resettable fuse version, will be certified to meet the NEC class 2. So for installers that are looking for, maybe it's a smaller scale, you don't want to put conduits, you don't need to hire professional electricians, you don't want that very expensive upfront installation cost.
Yeah.
The PTC fuse version is definitely the way to go.
Good. Thanks for breaking that down.
Yeah, and but the PTC fuse, the initial price point is slightly higher, so that's why the ATO fuse, just to support the like a more flexible version where the user can even swap the different fuse ratings on these fuses. So if they have different applications where they're powering more than just the door, maybe they have some other systems in their overall architecture that they want to power, they have the flexibility to put in a higher current fuse to use that channel to power, as long as the total power of the distribution board stays within the supported current rating, right? But yeah, again, I think the main difference between the two is that the PTC fuse is class 2 level, but the ATO is not. And there are some installation and the usage differences between the two. But we will be offering both of these options as standard off-the-shelf model.
Very cool. That's interesting that the PTC resettable fuses have such extensive safety standards. And speaking of safety, what kinds of certifications does the ACP currently offer?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the entire panel we are certifying to the UL 294 standard, which is slightly different from the UL 62368 that we work with all of our industrial or IT grade power supplies. So for the 62368, it's mainly a component level safety, and it covers things like IT, audio video equipment, communication equipment safety. And the principle behind it is that it's a risk-based or hazard-based safety, meaning that it doesn't list out like the requirements, the safety requirements is not from a very black and white or limits, like what's the limit you can meet or you need to meet,
right?
But it's rather, will this happen if a fault occurs or if something happens, right? So whereas UL 294, it's a lot different, and this is a more traditional approach to safety standards, which is a prescriptive standard, meaning that there are hard limits and requirements that you need to meet, basically. So those are the key differences between the two. But of course, the UL 294 is mainly designed with access control security in mind. And one of the biggest challenges when we went from 62368 product to the 294 was the more stringent surge requirement. So the UL 294 does require a 6 kV surge for the requirement, and then we're also going through UL and EMI labs to ensure that all the outputs and connections can meet the 61000-4-5 surge test. And one of the reasons we're doing that is also to ensure that within the UL 294 there is a clause that if your wiring does not exceed 30 meters, you can waive all these tests. But we determined that for a commercial or even a larger building, 30-meter wiring is definitely not enough, right? So yeah, we are doing all those additional requirements, ensuring the product meet that to certify fully to the 294 to provide as complete a product as we can.
Got it. That's excellent to know that the ACP series meets both of those UL certifications. I'd like to go back to the door lock types we mentioned. Could you talk a little bit about both those types and the importance of having either one or the other?
Yeah, I think these are just interesting for people that don't really work with their like door locks or things, right? But I think after this session, you guys may probably be interested. Oh, that's a mag lock. Oh, that's a electric strike, right?
Yeah.
For the there are mainly two different locks that we see in the field, and the ACP disclaimer here is compatible with both of them because of the Form C relay and configuration. The installer can flexibly configure the door normal state based on the different requirements, right? So for maglock safe, typically the normal state is that if there's no power, there's no locking. So it's only locked when a electric current is energizing the electromagnet magnet. So that it will close the door. But once the power is lost, it's normally open. Okay. For the electric strike, it's usually normally closed, but it's also locked without the power. So the power will tell the lock to unlock, essentially. So they're a little reversed in terms of the power and the locking state.
Yeah.
And during a fire alarm, so it's important that the power is cut or disabled from the mag lock to unlock it if we need to let people out. And for the door side need to remain shut, like fire doors, the energy needs to ensure that there's energy energizing the magnetic coil and such to keep the door locked, right?
Interesting.
So they're just a little bit reversed in the operating principle, but they're common in our daily lives.
Very cool. So both of these essentially open or lock the doors based on the opposite normal states. Could you also talk about the fire alarm system and the importance of having one of these?
Yeah, I think in one of the system diagrams earlier, I mentioned a fire alarm integration and fire alarm panel, right? Which is not part of the ACP series that we're providing. This is a separate system that actually, is typically in all the buildings that are to code. And this is to monitor the fire alarms and able to typically connect to the fire marshals, send signals to the fire marshals, hey, this building's fire alarm has been triggered, probably dispatch or whatever if it's not disarmed or something happens, right? So for the access control, a very big part of this is interaction with the FACP signal, meaning that there are programmable features that enable the doors to be configured, based on if there is a fire alarm signal present. Do we want these doors to force open immediately, or do we want some doors to force shut? Right. There's some fire doors that may need to force shut to protect property and human lives, right? But there are also majority of the egress doors that let people out, we probably want to unlock them. We don't want to trap people inside. So we have dip switches that allow the different configurations. So you can configure to, force open, force shut some doors if you want. But for the doors that are force open, regardless of the the control, the sensor input or whatever input or the controller input, regardless of the inputs, as long as the fire alarm panel signal is active, they will be forced to the specific state. Yeah, so it's like an override basically for every control. Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, thanks for walking us through the importance of the fire alarm system. Now, in terms of the wiring specifications, what do these access control panels look like under the hood?
Yeah, so here's inside of one of these panels, and the input board and the power supply, and then at least one of the power distribution board will be pre-wired but when we configure and ship these products out to the customer. But as mentioned earlier, we're not shipping the battery because the battery size largely depends on the project size, and that is typically decided in the field or just prior to the installation, right? And for the AC input, typically 14 gauge or even slightly smaller is acceptable. For the DC output, because they're all low current, we just recommend 16 to 24 gauge, depending on what's the power draw for the device. And then the FACP trigger also very low power signal line, so 16 to 24 gauge is sufficient. Nice. And then on the right side here, like the diagram, I mentioned earlier, we have the power distribution PCB, so we always have the option to install one or two. And if we just install one, the end user also has the option to put in the second one at a later date. And that will be determined by how many devices. Each of these board will be eight different doors or devices to be controlled. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Now, could you give us a rundown of how the ACP series compares to other similar offerings on the market?
Yeah, definitely. And here's just a quick comparison table with some of the, readily available solutions on the market. I think most of the specifications are matching. I think the main difference is that some of the competitors, they do have an edge over us is that they have 12 volt and 24 volt in a single power supply. So they can configure if the power supply runs in 12 or 24. Whereas for us, we are opting to do two different models. So one 12 volt and one 24 volt model. But because of this decision, we are able to put more power and more current inside of each of the options, which means that we are able to provide power to larger systems, larger devices, larger doors.
Nice.
And in the cases where the previous, competitors may be limited by the current on, maybe they only have 5 doors, but it's already at the current limit.
Yeah.
Right. So they need to go to the second panel. We will not be limited by the current. We will most likely just be limited by the number of devices, the 8 channels. We fully utilize that. So there's nothing wasted.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, because we're leveraging existing Meanwhile standard off-the-shelf product, which is the LAD product that some of you may have seen in the picture earlier, we're taking the UPS power supply from Meanwhile and we're putting inside this larger product so that we are able to save significantly on the production and development cost for the UPS power itself. Which is already a power supply UPS all-in-one device that is very cost competitive. So we are able to stay advantageous to our competitors in terms of the pricing.
I like to hear that. It's good to know that we're leveraging our existing strengths in new markets. Now, for those of us who might have gotten overwhelmed with all the features in the access control system, could you give us a quick recap?
Yeah. So again, the ACP series, as the name suggests, is an all-in-one access control power panel. And we offer models both in 12 volt and 24 volt. And there are built-in UPS functions which can integrate with batteries for backup and power supervision. The batteries, again, even though we're not including them in the package, we can configure for the system, for the customer, if they want them pre-shipped with batteries. And also, meanwhile, we do have these compatible batteries on our catalog for our C1 hull, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, and we're certifying the product to UL294, and it is very flexible product that compatible with both fail-safe or fail-secure devices and locks, and also full compatibility with the FACP panel, full configuration for each of the outputs as well. There's no need to choose, oh, these ones are the force open, those ones are the force closed ones. So yeah, and overall, just a very strong value product compared to the competitive products.
Sweet. Now that we've gone over access control, the various components and considerations, are there any other products to look out for Power Solutions?
Yes. So the the industrial battery pack, as I mentioned earlier, right? And the reason we're doing this battery pack, of course, I think there are a few design motivations behind this. First of all, it's to expand the Meanwhile DRAM portfolio, which is very extensive. We have AC to DC, DC to DC, and a very large selection of peripherals from UPS modules, redundancy modules, buffer modules, and all that. But some customers in the past have asked, like, you guys have UPS module, where are the batteries at, man? Right? So yeah, so we are providing a battery module now. And we are actually deciding to do this battery module locally in the US. So we are manufacturing and designing in the US and then shipping together, to the customers nationwide. And of course, the battery module, in comparison to just a standalone battery that customers can buy and install themselves in the cabinets, it is aimed to reduce mounting and wiring complexity. Meaning that the customers do not need to worry about adding a terminal or those spade terminals or how thick of a wire do I need and things like that. And because these battery packs industrial grade and fuse protected, we are also able to improve the overall safety and system reliability.
Very cool. Could you walk us through what that industrial battery module might look like?
All right, here it is. So yeah, so we call this the DBAT-SLA-2409. That just means it's 24 volt and 9 amp hours. So inside of this battery pack, we actually have two 12 volt 9 amp hour high grade sealed lead acid batteries in series.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're providing two 25 amp fuses for protection. And I think the biggest selling point of this is that the battery pack, even though it's only 9 amp hours, it is able to support up to 50 amps discharge current. And it's not a short duration either, which I can show you later. And the operating temperature, we are specifying operation from negative 15C to 50C, but the discharge time may vary based on the temperature. And for the standard model, we are providing the lever actuated terminal, meaning a toolless installation. Right, as I mentioned earlier, the goal of this is to simplify the wiring complexity, and we're able to provide this to quickly toollessly install the product. And we provide options for both wall mounting or DIN rail mounting. We will include the DIN rail clips in each of the packaging. They won't come installed because we see that a lot of the customers and the application actually just wall mount them because they're so bulky and heavy.
Right.
But for those that have extra, DIN rail space and they want to just mount these on the DIN rails, the two DIN rail clips will be included and can be installed, or we can pre-install them as an optional model for the customer as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how does the DBAT hold up regarding UPS considerations?
Yeah, so for UPS considerations, we definitely want to consider the different charging current and discharging current. But here's a quick review of the buffer time at 25C. So this is at room temperature, and the DBAT is able to provide 50 amps backup for 2 minutes. Or 40 amps for 4 minutes, and then as the current decreases, at 1 amp, 8.5 hours.
Wow.
So this is very, this is just the backup time at room temperature, and we are able to, specify a little bit, higher too, because we tested higher than these for sure for the products. Yeah.
Excellent. And what about when that temperature dips? It's a pretty wide operating temperature we've got here, but any implications regarding, fluctuations in the operating temperature?
Yeah, glad you asked because as I mentioned earlier, the backup time may differ based on the temperature, and our specification is for room temperature at 25C, right? So unfortunately, due to the physical limitations of SLA batteries, there will be significant degradation to the battery capacity and performance at lower temperature.
Right.
However, because many factors play into the backup time, such as what's the load current, what's the ambient temperature obviously is important, and then also what's the what's the environment like for that specific application. So we are not able to really come up with a table that includes thousands of values for different load current and all that, which is not really easy to use or referenceable for the customer anyways.
Right.
So we do have internal evaluations and studies done on the different degradation performances. So our TS team, technical support team, or the power solutions team can both answer these questions and help customers slice the batteries based on their specific application. What's the load time? What's the backup time needed? What's your load current? What's your minimum operating temperature? Things like that. So we can calculate that. So if there's any questions, please feel free to contact the Meanwhile USA sales team or the FAE, or directly contact us at Meanwhile Power Solutions. We have our website listed here, and then we also have info@meanwhileps.com for any technical inquiries as well.
Thanks for forwarding those contacts, Kai. Now, just to start wrapping up here, are there any similar products currently on the market with the DBAT battery?
There are quite a few actually, and most of the competitive battery packs we see are in the 7 amp hour range. But for the same size, we were able to find these 9 amp hour components that are able to make it work. So we decided to, kind of upgrade it a little bit and make it 9 amp hours, which allows a higher charging current. So if the customer only needs the 7 amp hour capacity, they are able to discharge and charge at a faster cycle as well for those cyclic applications. And the output current, we are staying to the highest on the market right now, 50 amps across the board with the competitors. And then we have longest buffer time for this class of products, right? Because of the bigger battery capacity. And then we also ensured with our battery supplier and manufacturer that we are able to support the -15 to 50C operation for those batteries. Correct. And then they're, flammable rating and all that, all that good stuff. So all of that while maintaining the lightest weight on the market as well with the 6.1 kilogram class. So this entire product will be certified to the UL 61010 standard, and it is also designed referred to the Class 1 Division 2 and DNV requirements for those more specific or harsher application environments. So the users and the installers can be confident and rely and comfortable when they're putting these into their system. And again, we're aiming to reduce the cost as much as we can.
Of course.
We are leveraging our Sharewell partners overseas for some of the pre-assembly and components. And then we are procuring the batteries from, I believe, Vietnam to pre-assemble and locally here to finally finish the assembly here. So that's why we're able to stay ahead of the competitors for the pricing as well.
I love it. I love Meanwhile staying ahead of the competition. Now, could you just give us a quick recap on DBAT?
Yeah. We're running out of time here, so I'll be quick. And again, the DBAT is a DIN rail / wall mount battery pack that is ready to install for any industrial battery applications. We're aiming to simplify the battery selection, wiring, and system integration with these products. And multiple of these, again, can be put in parallel and series if the customer needs more capacity or higher voltage. That's always an option. And it is, again, aiming to enhance and expand our DIN rail portfolio to be even more complete one-stop shop for the customer.
Oh yeah, we love one-stop shops and we love DIN rails even more. Thank you so much, Kai, for giving us the breakdown on APC and DBAT industrial batteries. That wraps up our TechSpark show. Thank you for joining, everyone. Be sure to join our next show hosted by Kyle and Han. They're going to be talking about PLC and servo motor drive products. And once again, if you have any questions regarding what we just went over, be sure to reach out to our technical team. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.